Hey, Kevin, ready to start us off?
Yep. Thanks for coming, everybody. A little intimate crowd tonight. Wait, hope a few more people should filter in, but just wanted to thank everybody for jumping on today. I'm excited to introduce, we'll start with Drew Berman, Vice President, Business Development for the Empower Network, 30-year career in sales, marketing, recruiting, business development. Drew's best-selling author and has a new book called Going All In. Will be coming out next month. Drew currently works with the fastest growing fintech company in North America and is working with business leaders, helping them create more impact, generate more clients, and create additional revenue streams.
Well,
Drew,
thank you,
Glenn,
Kevin.
welcome.
Thank you, Kevin. Good evening, everybody. Happy Friday. It is cold here in the Northeast, but we will bring some warm info to warm your hearts. My name is Drew Berman. I am a citizen of the world. I am from New York, but I do my laundry in Connecticut. And today you are in for a special treat. First of all, congratulations if you made it here. Tonight's event is an exclusive event for Kevin Sharkey, who works with New Jersey Elite. And we are happy to introduce a gentleman that has one of the largest estate planning law firms in the country, a knighted sir with 51 global awards, an international thought leader. And this presentation tonight is designed to help you if you're in mortgage or in real estate or in that vicinity professionally, how to use a very specific type of message to launch, grow, and scale your business in the world of legal, finance, tax, and estate planning. One of the best in the world is going to gift this to you this evening. So grab a pen and paper, and we will be engaged in the chat throughout. And we look forward to connecting with each and every one of you after this to create a long-term, powerful relationship. So on that, I bring to you Attorney Sir Glenn Wagstaff. Hello, Glenn.
Hi. Well, I'm glad to be here with everybody. Glad that we could have all of you join us today. We're going to keep the presentation today brief and hopefully as impactful as possible. And we're going to take the approach. I know we have a lot of real estate professionals and other professionals on the call today. We're going to take the approach today as if we were sharing this information for your clients, right? And the reason is because there's a lot of times where we, work with referral partners, real estate professionals, and by the way, there's some of the best professionals to work with because we sit down with their clients, and a lot of times they have specific needs for some of the things we're going to talk about. So, what are we going to talk about? Well, we're going to talk about how we can add tax planning, how we can add estate planning, how we can add, some of the financial vehicles and financial planning aspects of the conversation to your practice, because a lot of times you come across individuals that need these things. And not only do they need them, but it can actually mean the difference between you being able to get more sales and work with more clients or not. Let me give you an example. We had a real estate agent that we were working with in California, and he was struggling to be able to get a seller to move forward with wanting to sell their property. What was the issue? Well, the seller was going to be exposed to dramatic capital gains taxes when they sold their property. They've had their property for close to 20 years. In California, there's a significant, gains that have happened for a lot of people's properties. And in this case, he was going to be exposed to over $1 million in gains. So he said, I'd want to sell this. I don't want to maintain it anymore. I don't really want to have the real estate investment, but I don't want to sell if it means that I have to pay. In California, it was going to be close to 40% capital gains, right? And so he said, I'm not ready to sell if I have to pay all these taxes, but I would like to get out. So the agent's trying to get the listing. He's had conversations with him for, I think it was like 8 months, and he couldn't get him to move forward until we shared one of these concepts with him. And then he was able to share with his client, hey, what if you could do this listing and sell your property without being exposed to those capital gains? There are strategies to be able to do that, right? So we were able to help this client to save close to $350,000 in capital gains taxes avoid those taxes, and be able to sell their property and then use the proceeds for their retirement. And in that situation, because of the service that that we were able to provide, the real estate agent then got 3 other listings because that property owner spoke to other people that he knew that were in the same boat, right? Hey, I know you've been wanting to sell that farm, but you haven't done it because you're going to have a bunch of taxes. And I just found a way to sell my property without taxes. You need to talk to my real estate guy because he has a tax team that can help with that, right? So what we do in the Empowered Network is we bring together what we call the triangle of trust. And that's on the legal side, the financial side, and the tax side, the strategies and the tools to be able to empower you to service your clients even more. And we have a network of CPAs across the country. We have a network of attorneys across the country. Our firm handles primarily estate planning, and we'll spend a little bit of time talking about that today. And then we have a network of financial professionals across the country. So one of the things that we found as we work with financial and real estate professionals is that a lot of times your clients have additional needs that if you could just give them or point them in the right direction to service, it's going to create more stickiness with your clients. And one of the reasons is because they say that if you service a client with 3 or more products, then the likelihood that that client will stick with you long term and not go looking for another professional goes through the roof. It's like an 82% difference. And that's what we call stickiness. Now, in the real estate industry, I remember when I bought my first home, my real estate agent, I was having, making small talk with him. We were looking at a property and we were trying to decide whether we wanted to buy it. And I asked him, so how often do you end up helping a client that buys a home to buy another property? And he said, there's a kind of a cycle, and every 3 to 5 years, people end up either downsizing or upsizing or buying a new home or buying an investment property. And so it's valuable to stay in contact with people long term. As a real estate professional, the more tools or arrows in your quiver, right, tools in your tool belt that you can use to stay front of your clients and stay top of mind, the better. So that's another reason why we want to equip you with some of these tools. So what are these tools? There's 4 of them that we want to talk about today. And these are common scenarios that you are likely to come across that maybe you work directly with, or maybe you have a situation personally that you've experienced. But the 4 situations that we want to share is, number 1, whenever somebody is a property owner, they are exposed to the risk of probate or the loss of value or of their property if something were to happen to them in the case of emergencies. We can address that risk through effective estate planning, right? So I know a lot of professionals work with people who have gone through probate or are going through probate or have family members that have property in probate. And that's one of the times that in crisis that people need help. But a lot of times the reason that it's a crisis time is because of how long probate can take, how expensive it can be, how confusing it can be, and how frustrating it can be, right? So if we can avoid that altogether, even better. And pretty much everybody who owns real estate needs that, right? So that's the first one. The second one is if you work with anyone, or if you happen to be a real estate investor and you have multiple properties and those properties have appreciated in value, it doesn't have to be just real estate. It could be business interests. We've done this for, we had somebody that had an oil drum that had appreciated in value several hundred thousands of dollars. And because of that appreciation, they were going to be exposed to capital gains taxes. Well, most real estate professionals are only aware of what's called a 1031 exchange. The 1031 exchange allows you to avoid the taxes on the sale if you reinvest into a like-kind property, right? Well, we have 1031 exchange alternatives. So we don't have to reinvest into a like-kind property. We can do the same sort of thing to defer the tax using multiple different strategies, which we'll talk a little bit more about. We've actually written an ebook on this. So if there's interest in this specifically, let us know, put it in the chat, and we can share our ebook with you. It's called Exit Richer, and it's trying to minimize taxes on the exit, right? The third thing that we want to talk about is if you work with seniors. A lot of seniors, and by the way, it's one of the largest demographics nowadays, there's a huge need, and over the next 20 years, there's what they call the silver wave of baby boomers that are going to be retiring, right? And as they retire, they're going to have different needs. They might need to downsize. They might need to plan for long-term care. They might need to make sure that they're properly protected to qualify for Medicaid benefits, whatever it is. But there's a variety of needs that seniors have specifically. And that's one of the things that we can really assist with, is providing some of those support and strategies for seniors, right? And then the last thing that we'll talk about is this concept. And right now it's very viral, right? It's all over the internet. It's on TikTok. It's, all over the place, talking about the bank on yourself concept, or being able to establish a family bank so that you can loan to yourself for real estate investing rather than having to rely on traditional institutions. And so that's the fourth topic that we'll cover today. So to jump into these things, the first one, as we talk about estate planning and probate, let me just share a quick story with you guys just to highlight the need for this, because a lot of times people disqualify themselves from needing estate planning. They don't realize how universal the need is. So we had a situation, we heard about this directly from one of the children years after it happened, right? So this is one of those stories that was actually very impactful to hear. But what happened was, there was a nurse that lived in New York, and she was kind of the anchor person in her family. You know how there's always somebody that everybody kind of relies on, right? So she was like the anchor person in her family. She's an immigrant from the Philippines. She has family members in the Philippines, and she was a single mom here in New York. She has 2 kids, and everything's going well. She had finally got to the point in her career where she had kind of grown things and became the charge nurse over the entire floor. She had graduated with her bachelor's, so her income went up, all kinds of stuff that were going in her favor. And then she was diagnosed with cancer, and it was devastating, but she wanted to fight it. And so she looked at alternative strategies and remedies to be able to help her to get through the cancer. And unfortunately, her insurance didn't cover that, right? So she had to do a GoFundMe campaign with friends and family and try to raise the money to be able to, do these alternative treatments for her cancer. About 2 years after that, she lost the battle, and she was going to be passing away. And she brought her 2 kids in, and she said, "Look, I have life insurance. The home, you should have enough to be able to pay it off. Do whatever you can to be able to keep the home, and you should be taken care of. I wish that that things would have turned out differently, but you should be okay, right?" And then shortly after that, she passed away. Well, her kids are 15 and 17, so they're still minors. She passed away. They go to try to claim the life insurance policies, and the life insurance company says, "Hey, we can't release these to you. You need to go get a guardianship or somebody to be able to be responsible for the money until you turn 18, and then we'll be able to release the funds to you." And they said, "Well, what's a guardianship?" They said, "Well, you need to go talk to a probate attorney so you can open probate, and then they'll take care of that." So they go talk to an attorney, and the attorney says, "Yes, you need to open a probate. We can help you to do that, but you need to go get a retainer so that we can open probate for you." And of course, they didn't have any money to pay for the retainer, and they didn't know any different, that there might be other options. So the next thing you know, they've run out of money. The bank is threatening foreclosure, so the house gets foreclosed on, and they end up homeless on the streets of New York because they didn't have any way to be able to claim the assets that their mom left for them. After about 2.5 months of living this way, the sister, 15-year-old, she was fed up with it. She couldn't stand it anymore. She went to one of her classmates from school and begged them to take her in. And so for the next 4 years, she lived with them until she was able to go to college. And she said it was one of the hardest, worst things in her life to know that she left her brother homeless for about a year until he turned 18. And then eventually they were able to claim the money and everything else. Why am I telling you this story? I'm telling you this story because without a proper plan, all paths lead to probate, to the court system. And when somebody has real estate in particular, it's very difficult to transfer those assets outside of the court system unless they have an effective estate plan, like a trust, right? those structures allow you to empower somebody to manage things even after you're gone. But if you don't have it and everything ends up in the court system, again, it can be very expensive. It can take a long time, and it's a public process. And so most people want to avoid that. And without a proper plan, unfortunately, that's exactly where most people end up. So when you're sitting down with your clients and helping them to get into a new investment or to be able to get a new investment property, if they don't have an estate plan in place, it's a perfect way for you to be able to provide additional value by asking them, hey, have you sat down with an estate planning attorney, or is that of interest to you, right? In fact, we had a conversation the other day with a mortgage company, and one of the things we're looking at is sending a welcome basket every single time that somebody gets a new mortgage, and then sharing with them some of the ways that they can protect their new investment, right? Maybe that's having some life insurance in place to pay for the mortgage if something happens. Maybe that's having an estate plan, like a will or a trust in place, specifically a trust, to avoid probate so that everything transfers smoothly without problems, right? Or maybe that's a variety of other things. But it's one of those conversations that I think provides tremendous value when somebody owns real estate. And the way a trust works is that you get to name a trustee, and then that trustee doesn't have to go to court. They don't have to ask permission from a judge. They don't have to worry about, whether they have authority over managing the assets or not. They step into your shoes and automatically get to start making decisions and managing things. And as a real estate professional, actually, that's something very helpful too, because now you don't have to go back and clear title. You have somebody that can automatically step into a position to make decisions and possibly sell that property or refinance that property or do something with it, right? So when somebody sets up their trust plan, they get to decide who would benefit from that plan. Those individuals are called beneficiaries. And you get to decide, maybe you want to leave it for your kids, right? So if I were to pass away, I want to leave everything for my children, but maybe I don't want them to get all of it as soon as they turn 18. What's an 18-year-old going to do with $1 million? I know what I would have done, right? Maybe not the best of options at that point. So if you want to avoid those problems, you can leave guidelines, you can leave instructions, you can, make sure that there's specifics that they have to follow. So maybe when they're 21, they can get access to, 10% of the value. And when they're, 25, they can access 50% of the value. And when they're 30, they can access 100% of the value, or whatever. You can decide on those rules. You can also protect specific beneficiaries from themselves. Maybe there's somebody in the family that if they inherited the asset, they would just waste the money on drugs or alcohol or gambling or something like that, right? You can put somebody else in charge of managing it for them. Maybe there's a special needs individual in the family and they would lose their benefits if they receive an inheritance. But we can protect their share and make sure that they don't lose anything by putting it into a special needs trust within the trust, right? So all these things are just aspects of your estate plan that will help protect what you leave behind. Statistically, whether it's $10,000 or $10 million, statistically, whatever inheritance you leave behind here in the United States is gone within 6 or 7 months. So we spend our whole life saving up money, planning for retirement. Maybe we have some life insurance so that when we pass away, our family's protected. I mean, all of this is to make sure that we're leaving our family in a better spot than where we left them, before. And we pay off our home and everything else. And then we pass away, and in 7 months, it's all gone. Yes, that's the average. That's what usually happens. So one of the biggest reasons to have an estate plan is to avoid those problems, right? We say the 3 biggest drains on your estate are, number one, problems like this: probate, conflicts within the family, and so forth. Number 2, long-term care. Over 72% of Americans are going to need long-term care at some point in their lives. And if you don't have a way to pay for that, then it can cause a huge drain on the assets that you've saved or built over your lifetime, right? And then number 3, taxes. And most of us don't need to worry about estate taxes, but right now the exemption limits are $12.25 million per person. At the end of 2025, at the end of this year, it goes down to $5 million per person. So if you're in that middle area, or if you know somebody who is, this is a perfect time to do some planning to avoid those estate taxes. And people say, well, how bad could estate taxes be? You know, state of New Jersey only charges 3%, 5%, whatever it is. New York charges, 6%. It can't be that bad. Well, federal estate taxes start at 40% of everything above that exemption limit. So it's significant, right? If you have somebody that's in that, bracket of their net worth, then it's definitely important for them to make sure that they're doing effective tax planning to avoid those estate taxes. While we're on the topic of taxes, the second thing that we wanted to talk about is planning around taxes on capital gains. So I know most of us only have maybe a couple events in our lifetime where we're going to have significant capital gains, and it would require significant, tax exposure. And for those of us who maybe aren't as familiar with capital gains, let me just give a quick summary. So the way capital gains taxes work is whatever you invest in an asset, like a property, that's considered your basis. At the time that you sell the property, whatever you sell it for, the difference between the two are considered your gains. You don't have to pay taxes on your basis, what you originally invested, but you do have to pay taxes on the growth. And usually that's at a lower tax bracket than your regular tax bracket. At a federal level, that maxes out at a 20%. But depending on what state you're in, it can be more than that, right? So you have state taxes on top of that. You have surtaxes on top of that. You have Medicare taxes on top of that, and so on and so forth. And so at the top tax rates in New York and California and certain states, you could be close to a 40 or a 42% tax rate on capital gains. In other states where maybe there's no state taxes, you're still looking at a 20%. The issue is that if you have $1 million of gains, you still have $200,000 of capital gains taxes. And so that's significant, right? We can help to avoid, defer, or minimize those taxes. So we have 3 different strategies that we use. The first type of strategy is called tax minimization. These strategies have to be put in place before the sale even happens. So for example, we can put in place something called a charitable remainder trust. And the charitable remainder trust allows you to donate a property or an asset into the trust, sell it, and not have any capital gains exposure on the sale. Then after that, you receive an income stream from the trust every year for the rest of your life, or for a certain number of years, depending on how we structure it. What you receive in income, you declare just like normal, for taxes, income taxes or capital gains taxes, depending on how the treatment in the trust is. And then at the end of your passing, whatever's left in the trust goes to the charity of your choice. The cool thing is, if you do this in conjunction with life insurance, we can replace the value for the family. So instead of losing 20, 30, 40% of the asset upon sale when you pay your tax, what we can do is actually triple the asset value, because you can live off of the full value during your lifetime. You can leave the full value at the time of your passing to a charity of your choice. Maybe that's even your own private foundation that you leave for the family to run. And you can leave the full value for your family through life insurance proceeds. So we essentially tripled the value for the next generation. There's almost nothing else like it, right? So that's one strategy, 1 out of 6 or 7 strategies that we use in these type of scenarios. The second type of option is what we call tax deferral. So tax deferral would be just like a 1031 exchange, right? That allows you to defer when you have to realize the tax. We have alternatives to the 1031. So we can do something called an extended escrow trust, where we allow those taxes to be paid a little bit at a time over time, or at some future point in the future without having to realize it today. We also have strategies like a Delaware statutory trust, which is in essence the same as a 1031, but it's a 1031 alternative, right? We can buy you some time because maybe you're not ready to reinvest on the rules that a 1031 requires. And then the third type of strategy, so we have tax minimization, we have tax deferral, and then we have what we call tax offset strategies. And this is where we can create deduction opportunities for you to offset how much tax you would have to pay. We just helped a client to do this with a charitable lead trust. They were going to have to pay $300,000 on the sale of stock. They realized a whole bunch of gains. They were going to have about $300,000 in taxes. And we were able to reduce that. Sorry, they were going to have about $600,000 in taxes. I guess it was less than that. It was about 480,000. We were able to reduce it by 300,000 that they didn't have to pay to the IRS. And by structuring this sort of structure, they were able to offset the amount of tax that they had and then be able to do other things with those funds, right? The longer you can keep control of your funds, the more you can do with it. Maybe you can invest in other real estate. Maybe you can invest in your future and retirement. Maybe you can put it into, high value sort of things. I know, a lot of our clients that we work with do hard money lending and so on and so forth. And you could put your money to work as long as you have control of it. But if you lose control of it, if you just pay it to the government, not only are you losing that value, but you're losing all of the growth potential of that value. Does that make sense? So these strategies are powerful because they allow your clients to keep a hold of that money for longer and to do more with it. So that's scenario number 2, right? We talked about scenario number 1, avoiding probate, making sure that things are in place so that everybody, gets the distributions when they need it at the time of passing and that sort of thing. Number 2, we have strategies to minimize the taxes and to be able to avoid those capital gains taxes, right? Number 3, we work very closely with seniors. So not only can we plan around long-term care, because again, 72% of us are going to need long-term care at some point in our lives. We have strategies to help with that. But we also specialize on the financial side through the financial network with Drew and Kevin. And, we have other professionals that are working in this space now. And we'll share with you here at the end that there is compensation potential if you're interested in working with your clients to be able to refer these sort of strategies to them, and completely hands off, right? We help them start to finish, and you can help get credit on that. But as we, help seniors, one of the things that they're looking for is a way to put their money somewhere where it's not going to lose, not be exposed to market risk, but also give them the potential for gains and growth. And that it's not going to outlast them, or that they're not going to outlast it, right? Outlast their money in retirement. That's one of the things that we can really specialize in, is helping them to create their own private pensions that they would have control over personally, so that they don't outlive their money. Their money is not going to be exposed to market risk, and that they can still participate in the growth of the market if things go well. As you guys know, over the last couple of years, we've been in a bull market. Those that know what they're doing, know how to invest, have made a lot of money. Those that don't have lost a lot of money. It's not a stable market where everybody's making money. It's up and down. Some are making a lot, some aren't making very much at all. And those clients that are in strategies like the ones that we recommend, they haven't lost anything, and they get to participate in that wave when it goes up. And so they've done very well over the last few years because they haven't gone backwards. I remember sitting down with my mother-in-law. We looked at her 401k plan before she retired, and we were looking at all of the strategies available to her in her 401k plan. There was 161 options. Out of 161 options, we did the analysis on every single one of those investments. Only 3 of them would have given her positive returns over the last 20 years. Only 3 were positive. So people think that when they have a 401k plan, that they can invest in whatever they want. But the reality is that it's pre-selected by your employer what options you have. And she was losing her match every month because she was putting it into environments that were exposed to risk. So she would put in $1 and they would match her $1. And then now she's in theory supposed to have $2, but because of how poorly the market was doing and her accounts were doing, she ended up with $1.60. You see how that's a bad thing? The most growth that you make in those contributions is on your match. She was losing part of her match because of how poorly her accounts were performing. And this is happening every day to thousands, if not millions of Americans. So if you have a client, particularly seniors, because they're exposed and vulnerable to these sort of things, that is worried about their investments or worried about making sure that their money's going to last them in retirement, this is one of the services that we can help them with. Look at where they are at, look at what their goals are, make recommendations for what's going to serve them best, and putting them in a conservative environment where they're not going to lose, but they can still participate in the upside of the market. So that's number 3, working with seniors. And the last one that we want to share with everybody is working with investors. We have a lot of investors that are always looking for opportunities to be able to leverage what they already have. And unfortunately, a lot of times they can't qualify for new loans, for new investment, because of being able to, because they've either over leveraged their credit, or because they haven't developed enough history on their credit. Maybe they have a few rental properties, but the banks are requiring 2 years of financials or whatever it is. We have options to be able to help them to start their own bank and borrow from themselves, so they can actually develop out, put into over 3-4 years a fund, and then leverage that fund to be able to borrow and get investment loans for their property purchases, or to be able to self-fund those purchases, right? And these are strategies that sometimes they call infinite banking. Sometimes they call it the bank on yourself concept. Sometimes they call it, family bank. But essentially, we leverage the right vehicles, often life insurance vehicles, to be able to structure a tax-free environment where they can build up enough value that they can then leverage for real estate purchases or other purchases in the future. That's one of the strategies that we specialize in, right? And not only setting up the financial vehicles, but then wrapping it inside of legal vehicles like a trust. And we have specific types of trusts that we use for that purpose. So if you work with investors that are interested in those kind of strategies, we can help. If you're working with seniors that are interested in any of the things that we talked about today, we can help. If you're working with individuals that have lots of capital gains that they're going to be exposed to, we can help. And if you're looking at individuals who want to protect their assets from probate or from some of those legal consequences of not having a proper plan in place, we can help. And the reason that we're having this meeting is, first of all, to get a little bit of exposure on the information. So if some of this information resonated with you and you would like to have a follow-up conversation because it could apply to you or one of your clients, we would love to get together. We'd love to continue the conversation. And we'd love to, do a free analysis. We don't charge at all for doing the service of going through the numbers, coming up with the strategies, coming up with the recommendations. And there's no pressure for a client to move forward with us. But when they come as your referral, we don't charge for that analysis and those recommendations. So we're trying to help Kevin right now to build up his networks of referral partners that need these type of services. And I know every single person on either needs this or knows somebody who could possibly need this, right? So keep them in your back pocket. Now that you're aware of what we can help with, this is one of those options that you can be able to reach out and let Kevin know that, that you have somebody that needs these services, we can assist. But if there's interest in being able to help your clients with these things, there's also an opportunity for you to be able to enhance your practice, your business, and make money doing it. It's very easy. It requires just a simple life license. And you don't have to be the one sitting down with the client and explaining anything to them. But as you make those referrals, we can actually take care of the client, and then you get credit and get paid on each of these strategies. Some of these strategies don't even require a license. So, you make the referral, we take care of the client, and then you get credit. But, for those of you who have been in real estate long enough, you know that real estate can go in waves, right? It can go up and down. And sometimes the market's hot and everybody's making a ton of money, and sometimes the market's slow. And you need to subsidize your business with other revenue streams. This is a way to subsidize your revenue streams without distracting yourself doing something different. This is a way to be able to leverage other professionals as part of your network. And by the way, those professionals are likely going to need your services at some point as well. I know Kevin's in the mortgage space. He's, helping with a lot of the funding side of things for clients, but he needs real estate professionals that he can rely on to be able to help his clients as well, right? And so, as we have estate planning attorneys that work with clients, sometimes they will have needs for real estate professionals as well. So as part of our network, we will be able to leverage your services if it makes sense and when it makes sense, right? So we want to continue the conversation. If anything that we've talked about today resonates with you, if anything is of interest, reach out to us. we'll send you a copy of our ebook, Exit Richer, which breaks down some of these tax planning strategies. And it's a way for you to be able to get in front of more clients and to help clients to move forward with more of their sales transactions. We'll set up a time that we can talk to you about how we can enhance your practice, and if it's interest in enhancing your revenue streams, then again, we can have that conversation. And then thirdly, if you have any clients that we can service, this is one of the ways that is the best way for you to be able to get to more real estate clients or more clients that you can service, simply because you're providing a service to them that they would not have gotten from another professional in your space, but for the network that you brought them to. Does that make sense? So when we sit down with your client, our goal is to help you to look good and to build your relationship with your client to the point where hopefully they go back to you and maybe not just use you again, but recommend somebody else to you. And if we can build that sort of relationship, that's really what we're looking for. So we appreciate you being here to support Kevin. We appreciate you, listening to some of this information. Hopefully this was valuable for you and your practices. And if there's interest in sitting down, please just, send us a chat message here and let us know that there's some interest. We can set up an appointment for you. And we're going to open it up for some question and answer. So if anybody has questions, feel free to put it here in the chat or to raise your hand. And I'm going to turn it back over to Kevin. Any final thoughts, and for you to be able to just coordinate the question and answers here.
Yeah, Mary is saying that she wants a copy of the ebook, so we're going to send that out to her, and she would like to share this with others. So we're going to send her the recording, and Angela is actually raising her hand. So let's say hi to Angela real quick. You can either type it in the chat, or if you have the capacity of unmuting. Let's see, Angela, I'm going to allow you to talk. So you should be able to ask your question, Angela.
Yes, it's in reference to like a 1031 exchange. What if you're part of an investor in a syndication and they sell the property and you get your, your profits from that? As an LP investor, do you have, do those protections work, or tax minimization strategies work for LP investor in a syndication?
Yeah, so on the front end of the syndication investment, a lot of times there's, accelerated depreciation that they leverage, right? And that's a good strategy as well. Sometimes we recommend that strategy as well. But on the back end, when you exit from it, or when the property is sold, there can be capital gains that you're exposed to. And sometimes there's even depreciation recapture, right, that you're exposed to. So yes, we have strategies that we can leverage for that. So if you have that come up, we can help with that. Yeah.
And since it's I'm not the managing on the managing side, does something have to be set up before it's sold on my end?
It's always best to have the conversation before it's sold, because we are limited in options the closer we get to the sale, and sometimes even after the sale we have options, but just not the same ones, right? So we want to talk to them as early as possible, because then we'll have the most options available. Yeah.
Okay, so I might want to talk to you because one of the properties, I'm an LP investor and they want to try to sell it this year.
Yeah, let's set up a time to talk.
Okay.
Angela, I'll send you a note in chat, and we can just book a time to explore that together, okay? It looks like everyone here is actually wanting the book. So Glenn, can you give us a teaser about the book and what they can expect from it?
Yeah, so in essence, you've already gotten the teaser. The book is really about tax planning for the exit. So we talk a little bit about a book that was written by a very famous, influencer in the financial space, author of 27 books. She was the co-author of Rich Dad Poor Dad. And she wrote a book called Exit Rich, and it's all about positioning your company for an exit. And then I asked her, I had the opportunity to have a conversation with her, and I said, where was the chapter on tax planning for the exit? And she said, we didn't write that chapter. And I said, well, what if we wrote an ebook that would have been that chapter, planning around the taxes when you exit from your business or from property or whatnot? And she said, that's a great idea, right? So that's where the idea came from. And it's a very quick read. It's about 27 pages long, but it's a very easy thing to give to your clients or to individuals that are interested in this so that they can get a good idea of their options before they sit down with a professional to actually strategize and plan through those options. So we'll send that book out to you. And by the way, inevitably, when we do these presentations, we have people say, I wish that somebody I know was here, right? So just to give you the heads up, we're going to be doing one of these every quarter this year with Kevin. And we'll let you know when the next presentation is so that you can invite others to be in attendance if this information was valuable for you.
So I'm
Thanks,
going to follow
Glenn.
up. Go ahead.
Sorry, guys, I'm just in a lobby with a lot of music, so I'm trying to be as quiet as possible. But I appreciate everybody's effort and showing up. And if this resonates with anyone, and anybody that you can think of to benefit as well, we would love to reconnect with you.
I'll be following up by email. My name is Drew. I work very closely with both Kevin and Glenn. And in the email, I'll have my calendar out. We'll schedule a one-on-one to go over any of the topics, see how they can interest you, your teams, the people that you work with. This is only the beginning of what's possible here, as we're on a national tour right now, really impacting people's lives. And one of the main things we do is protect. When we sit with people, we protect what's most important to them: their money, their family, their homes, their businesses. And when we sit with someone, we take a holistic approach so they get the best of all things: law, tax, finance, and insurance. And very few people do it as thoroughly as Glenn and Kevin and the folks that they work with. So Kevin, great job. The quality of professionals that you have introduced us to is extraordinary. The president of the New Jersey Latino Chamber of Commerce just joined in New Jersey with us, as well as today, Kevin doesn't even know this yet, a gentleman who owns 40 agent health insurance agency just partnered with us. So we have deep partnerships with CPAs, entrepreneurs, CEOs, business owners, and we're looking to create our powerful partnerships with people like Kevin, people like you. And if there's any other questions, we can answer them now. Otherwise, I'm about to send an email to each of you with Glenn's book, our compliments, and potential next steps that we could take together. Kevin, thank you so much. Glenn, thank you so much. And hopefully this is the beginning, friends, that we can do more together. Bye for now.
Thanks, Drew. Thanks, everyone, for coming.